Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Cocktails at the Junior Senior Lounge with Matt and Jeff. And tonight, or this afternoon, we thought that we would do a special Mother's Day version of our show, a special edition. And we're going to mix up a couple of cocktails that are in honor of our mothers, and maybe even something they would like.
God, I hope so.
We would hope so. So I'm going to go first, and I'm going to make something in honor of my mother, Ruth. My mother, in the early days, my earliest remembrances of her drinking, she was kind of a lightweight when it came to alcohol. She wasn't into the heavy stuff, and it didn't take a lot to get her a little bit tipsy, you might say. So she tended to favor the girly drinks in those days. And one of her favorites that I remember was an apricot sour. So I thought that in her honor, I would do a derivation of that. So it would be an apricot sour with a little bit of a twist. So I'm going to add a little bit of Saint Germain, which is an elderberry flower liqueur, which is quite delicious. So I'm going to call that one, this little drink, a flower for Ruth.
That's sweet.
And Matt is going to make something for his mom, Patricia, which he's calling Momma's Mudslide Martini. So it's going to be kind of a derivation of a frozen mudslide with something called Balatin, which is a chocolate cherry liqueur, very low alcohol percentage, but it's creamy and it's chocolatey and it's got a little hint of cherry in there. And also something called 43, or translates to 43, which is kind of the national liqueur of Spain. Very delicious. How would you describe it? It's kind of a bourbon.
Yeah, it's very it's got very vanilla notes when you first kind of smell it. It almost tastes to me like liquid chocolate. So it's kind of a perfect thing to put into a milkshake like drink.
It's a good match. So we'll put those into a blender with a big whomping thing of vanilla ice cream, never hurt anything.
No.
Blend it all up and put it in a beautiful little drink glass. So there we go. So let's get started. I'll go first. And so on the flower for Ruth, we're going to start with just a simple cocktail glass here. And I'm going to put in 2 ounces of apricot brandy. So let's see, we will use, I've got a Hiram Walker apricot brandy, which is pretty good. And so let's see, we'll put in 2 ounces of that. I love the smell. You can just smell it wafting up as you're mixing it. All right, and then 2 ounces of sour mix. And this stuff is super handy. You can just get it right off the shelf in the grocery store or the liquor store. And there you go. And if I stop there, that would pretty much be a classic apricot sour. But
Easy drinks tonight.
We're not done. So here is the Saint Germain. It's a beautiful little bottle too. It's kind of pricey. But that's why, a little one goes a long way. You don't need a lot of it. So I'm just going to put a dash of it in. And
Saint Germain has a very floral kind of flavor to it. So as he said, a little bit goes a long way. You really don't want to put a lot in there unless you want to eat roses, basically.
Yeah, so we'll give that a little stir and add some ice. All right. And since it's in honor of Mom, I think we have to put a cherry in there, for a little bit of color. Let's see. We'll go down here. I didn't say wait. All right. Let's see if I can dig one out. All right, and we'll put that in. A flower for Ruth.
So have a little sip. Let's see what it tastes like.
All right. Quite delicious. Have a taste.
Yeah, that Saint Germain really kind of adds like just a little interesting.
It adds some character, like my mother. Please, my love.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because unfortunately I was never able to meet Jeff's parents. They passed away before I came into the picture. I think your dad actually passed away like a couple months before you and I started chatting.
Yes.
Your parents passed away on the same day. How many years apart?
6 years apart. My mother in February. My mother on the 18th of February. My mother in 2002, and my father in 2008. And I always said that my mother probably wanted that for her anniversary of death to have her husband up there, her dance partner, and the love of her life for many, many years. They were married in 1947. I don't know how many years that is. I'd have to do the math, but it was.
Well, if it's 47 and you were in 50, so you're 70 now, so 73.
Yeah.
There you
It
go.
was a good long time.
Well, as for me, my cocktail is sort of inspired by some of the earliest memories I have of my dear mother drinking, which does not happen very often because she is, as Jeff said with his mom, she's a bit of a lightweight. She doesn't like to partake too often. But one of the drinks that she would always talk about, and I was always fascinated with as a kid because I thought, this sounds amazing, was a mudslide. She would always talk about, they would go out and have dinner someplace, and she might have one as a treat, and she'd come home and chat about it. And my elder brothers and sisters and all of their friends would always talk about, how my mom would have her little mudslide, and I was always just enamored of this because booze and milkshakes. That's like the
Like
best.
heaven.
Exactly. You can't get any better than that. So I kind of wanted to perk that up a little bit. And one of the other things that my mom has started drinking more recently now are chocolate martinis, which are very simple. It's just 2 ounces of vanilla vodka and an ounce of creme de cocoa. And we like to put a little Hershey's Kiss in there because that's what our dear friend Steve Guthrie would always make for us whenever he did it. So we've kind of turned her onto those. And so I wanted to see if I could mix the 2 of those together and put kind of a fun little spin on it. So for me, I'm going to start off with an empty blender because it's so much easier just to make everything in one little cup here. So inside the blender, we're going to take 1.5 ounces of this Balloton's chocolate cherry cream. This is a very small alcohol content, so it works out well for my mom because, again, she's not going to want to get too schnockered. We always like it when she does, though, because it's fun to get her going when we're all together as a family. So we're going to start off with 1.5 ounces of this. I'll be honest, I have no idea if you can even get this anymore. I was walking through a liquor store. We were over at our friend Richards and Perry's house, and we needed some emergency booze, so they've got a liquor store right across the street. So I went over there to pick up some Maker's Mark real quick, and there was a nice woman giving out little sips of this stuff, and I think I'd already had the rest of Richard and Perry's booze, so I was a little tipsy at that point, and they could have shoved anything in my face and I would have bought it. So this is what I came home with, and I've enjoyed it quite a bit. So I wanted to use this. It's a nice base for these kind of milkshake sort of drinks because it's already got that creamy quality to it. They call it a whiskey and chocolate cherry cream liqueur. So what's not to love? So again, we're going to do 1.5 ounces of that. And then we're going to do a half ounce of this 43, which is one of the favorite drinks in Spain. It's so called because of the 43 secret ingredients that they use to make this. And it's really kind of hard to pinpoint what the flavor is. I think it's almost like a Rorschach test for whoever drinks it. Everybody's going to have a slightly different outcome on what they think this stuff is supposed to be. So we're going to use a half ounce of this. And when you're mixing these up, if you want a boozier milkshake, just because the alcohol content on this is going to be kind of light. Again, Mom didn't want a bunch of booze. So you can always add a little more and kind of change the mix up a little bit. A little more ice cream if it's become too boozy for you. And before you know
or
it,
if you want it thicker, you might like it more like a milkshake, so it's like one of those frozen grasshopper drinks, like that consistency, or almost a creamier, just like milkshakes come in all different thicknesses.
I usually prefer mine creamier, but I don't want to dilute the alcohol too much because I want to have like 5 or 6 of these and and put on 30 pounds. So the next thing you want to get is about a cup of vanilla ice cream. And you're just going to dump that all in here. Now, something else you can always do if you want it to be a little more thick is you could put a couple cubes of ice in there before you go and give this a nice mixing. Don't want to let any of that ice cream go to waste. There you go. Jeff, I'm sure you would more than happy to...
No, not I.
No. All right. So the last thing you want to do is just give this a nice good mix. I apologize ahead of time. This is going to be a little loud, so if you're listening with headphones or something like that, do a little pluggies.
Or just sip on whatever you've got.
Yeah, who cares? Oh yeah, that's nice. Okay, so we're going to serve this up in a nice martini glass. It's always good if you can chill it beforehand. I didn't think to do that this time, but it always just kind of helps complete the illusion a bit. And we're going to take some Hershey's chocolate syrup, and just to give it a little pizzazz, we're going to just kind of coat the inside, give it a little swish. More chocolate never hurt anybody.
Never.
And finally, we will pour this directly in there.
Oh, look at that. Pretty as a picture.
Just like my mama. Now, normally there's always a little bit left in here, and I'm not going to embarrass myself by sucking this out, but once the camera's off, I promise you I'll probably have my entire face put in this thing.
Unless I get to it first.
I'll share with you, baby.
Okay.
And there you have it. A nice little Mama's Mudslide Martini.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
To Mama.
God, that's good.
Is that yummy?
Yes, it is. I must warn you, even though it is a low alcohol content, it's way too easy to just suck these down one after the other. So if you make a whole pitcher of them, you'll probably be pretty blasted by the end of the evening. Not that my mom would ever do that.
No, very reminiscent of the Cocktail on a Cruise Ship, isn't it?
Yes, it's very similar to our friend Jay. We go on cruises with our good friends Jay and Chris, and Jay can never remember what these drinks are called. He always wants to call them mudslingers instead. So we figure at some
Especially
point,
after a few of them.
yes, exactly. So at some point we'll have to come up with a Jay-friendly version of these called mudslingers, which probably involves berating whoever it is that is serving you them.
And it might need a touch of Jameson's, which is
Yes.
his passion.
So yeah, we hope you try these out. They should be pretty easy. I know this drinking something like this definitely reminds me of my mom. Were there any special stories you might have had about your mom that you wanted to share? Anything you
Well,
remember?
nothing that I'm going to tell. No, I do remember we were my dad had taken us to a convention once, and I don't remember where we were, maybe in Washington, D.C. or Florida or something like that. And my mother had several of these, and we were walking back to our hotel room, so we were up on the floor, and she was kind of careening off the walls. But God love her.
Let's see. As for me, so a funny story I always like to tell about my mom whenever we're with our friends. Don't worry, Mom. I know you're watching, so it's nothing embarrassing. It's very cute. So when gay guys get together, especially if they haven't known each other for a while, one of the topics that always ends up coming up is, how did you come out? What process did you go through? Was it easy? Was it hard? Luckily for me, it was a very easy process. I had been seeing Jeff for probably about a month at this point, and I was living in Jeffersonville, Indiana at the time, and Jeff was in a little podunk place called Penfield, Illinois, kind of central Illinois near Champaign, Urbana. And I was still living with my mom, and I was telling her that I was going to see a friend. And she knew this was probably a bold-faced lie because I was the kid that never left his room, never did anything. I never went anywhere, and here I was suddenly taking 3.5-hour road trips to go meet a friend. So yes, my mother's telling me watch it. I told you I'm not gonna. Nothing bad's gonna happen. So about a month into the relationship, I kind of realized that things were getting serious. So I said, okay, at some point, this whole I'm going to see a friend thing isn't going to fly anymore. So I should probably start the process of coming out. So I went downstairs, and my mom was watching TV, and I sat down next to her, and I picked up the remote control, and I hit mute. So she looked over at me and immediately knew that something was off, because God knows I would never do that. TV was my life. Why would I turn it off on her? So she gets very serious, and she says, "Well, what is it you need to talk about?" And I said, "Well, I did like what every self-respecting gay man does when he first comes out. I told her I was bisexual because it's so much easier to slide into that and then go one step further along." And she kind of nods her head and says, "Okay." And I said, "And the friend that I've been seeing is actually a guy that I've sort of been dating." And she says, "Okay." And I said, "And he's 58 years old." And she goes, "Okay." And I said, "And he's a Catholic priest." And she says, "Okay." And she kind of sits there and mulls on it for a second. And then she says, "But I don't get it. You don't even like to decorate your room." So at that point, I knew I was going to be okay. All I had to do was just tell her, don't tell anybody else in the family just yet. Give me a while to figure out what I'm going to do about this, because I'm sure she was chomping at the bit to go and let everybody else know. But luckily, my coming out story was very easy, no problems whatsoever. My family was fantastic, but I will always thank my mom for making that first step not so big. So thank you, Mom, and I love you a lot.
And to my mother-in-law, who is absolutely wonderful lady.
She is. And Jeff is very happy because she's 2 months older than he is. So thankfully he's 2 months younger than his mother-in-law.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it just would have been weird.
That would have been weird.
So yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. Next week, we'll get back to our normal habit of taking some suggestions from you guys and seeing what you've got in store for us. But until then, we hope everybody has a wonderful Mother's Day. To the mothers that are still out there, we salute you. To those who are no longer with us, we salute you as well. And much love to everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for coming and joining us in our lounge, and we'll see you next week.
Ta-ta.